Okay, so we're going to do a little training session here for our reps at conferences. And I'm going to take you through how to set the books up, the order that they're to be set up. We're going to start with our illustrated books first, so that's pretty easy. Our illustrated books include Silver Cup, that's one of our newest books. Launch the Life book, Launch the Lifeboat. That is an amazing story that leads children to Christ, great salvation story. And you want to point this out to customers. This is the only book that we know of that O.F. Walton, Mrs. O.F. Walton, wrote as an illustrated book. She's the one that wrote Winter's Folly. She wrote many of our children's books, but this is the only illustrated book that she wrote. And we kept this one exactly the way it was originally. The illustrations are just gorgeous. This is just an amazing book. So that's the Launch the Life book, Launch the Lifeboat. And then we have our trusty books. There are 7 trusty books here, and each one they deal with fighting fear, they deal with trust, they deal with telling the truth, they deal with envy and jealousy, they deal with this new one we've got out here, Trusty Turns Green, and then another one, Trusty and Ingrid Fibster, dealing with lying, and then Trusty meets Bully Blair. We got one that deals with bullying. So the Trusty series, that's great. These are all for children, 1 year to 6 years old. And then we got Teddy's Button. It comes in both illustrated, audio drama, and in our best-selling children's book, the red little book, Teddy's Button. But if you've got children that are, say, 6 and under, and they want a great illustrated book that deals with salvation, Teddy's Button is another great one. This one's a keepsake. This is the Three Weavers. This is for fathers to read to their daughters. And the story, the 3 fathers, only one daughter will marry the prince if she lives her life in virtue, and her father lives his life in wisdom. And another excellent illustrated book. This is a story within a story. You want to point this out to customers. It starts with a little bit of a flower here, a painted flower, a little rose. And as you go through the story, you'll see this rose continually popping up. And as it does, the rose is telling a story. You got the rose is now stretching into different directions, trying to find out what direction they want to go in life. And soon the girls start to make choices against their father's wishes. And the roses, all of a sudden, one at a time, start to lose their petals because they've made a wrong decision. And only the girl that's going to trust her father to the end, if he lives his life in wisdom, will the rose remain pure, and she keeps her petals in the end. So that's a great story. She's able to give the rose to her prince in the end, and they ride off happily ever after. There's the rose in the end. So this is, again, a story within a story for fathers and daughters. This also has a place to sign. This is a book that fathers would read to their daughters when they're young. They would then keep this, and then they would give this on their wedding day. So this is kind of a cool book. And then lastly, we've got our Beggar's Blessing. This is based on a true story. This is about Queen Victoria and how she gave up her favorite doll to feed a starving beggar. And then The Hedge of Thorns, also based on a true story about a little boy who disobeys his parents, going across the hedge of thorns, and learns the lesson the hard way, that when you cross the boundaries that God sets for you, you can harm those you love the most. That also comes in our classic book as well as an audio drama. And then The True Princess. I love this book. This teaches little girls that to be a true princess, she that is going to be the truest of princes is one that serves the most. And so her father, the king, is going to go away, and he leaves a nana with her. And the nana is going to teach her how to dress for herself, bake for herself, clean up after herself. And that when it comes time for her father to return to the kingdom, which is years later, the only way that he'll recognize her, and the nana teaches her this, the nana is a picture of the Holy Spirit, is that if she's in the form of a servant, because all the other girls of the kingdom are going to claim to be the true princess when the father returns, the king. So when the king returns, all these girls are claiming to be the true princess, and whoever is the real true princess is going to claim the kingdom. It's going to be hers. And so the nana teaches her each day about these different chores, and that she's not going to, even though she's the true princess, she's not going to dress like one. She's going to dress like a servant, and she's going to even have fun doing it. And I just love this story. When the father finally returns, he asks the one girl of the kingdom, he says, would you be willing to take care of our horses. And she goes, oh, you're trying to trick me. We know you have servants for that. So in exasperation, he asks all the girls of the kingdom, is there anyone who's willing to serve, anyone who's willing to bake for us, anyone who's willing to help us? We're very tired. And all of a sudden, a young lady comes out of the crowd who the other girls just kind of pushed aside because she's not dressed in royalty. She's dressed in a servant's outfit. And she says to the king, the quiet girl in the patched dress spoke up. I'd be happy to, sire, she whispered, just because I love you. My darling child, said the king, hugging his daughter close. It is love that marks the true daughter of the king. So the king and his princess were reunited, and it has been said that no princess was ever kinder, more loving, and wiser ruler than she was. And no one in the world could bake a better pie. It's just kind of a cool story, the true princess. Now, that's our illustrated collection, and there's so much here. Oh, also, the Tales of the Kingdom. Now, this isn't for young children, but I put it in our illustrated collection. These are classics before their time. If you've not read Tales of the Kingdom, Resistance and Restoration, this is a story of rescuing children out of the hands of the enemy, out of the hands of the enchanter. And there's no such thing as a king and death to pretenders. People work during the night, sleep during the day, and it's forbidden to see the light. But Thespia's mother told her there was a real king and a real kingdom, and the sunset was beautiful. But she had to believe, because for Thespia, seeing was believing and believing was seeing. But only those that would believe with their heart rather than their eyes could be a true daughter or son of the king. And so these stories here, Tales of the Kingdom, I have never read allegories better than this. I put these above The Hobbit, above Lord of the Rings. I mean, what's that Harry Potter stuff? By the way, that stuff is extremely harmful. If you've not read Friendly Dragons, Moral Nightmares, you must read it. That will help you guide parents as to why allegories such as Harry Potter are extremely, have a negative influence upon kids, not only their mind and their heart, but upon their soul. In the book of, I think it's 2 Peter chapter 3, it says, Lot's righteous soul was vexed from day to day by the things he saw and the things he heard. The word vexed means to be torn apart, to be tortured or terrorized. We've got to surround our children at a young age, moral heroes. We've got to surround our children with objective truth based on the Word of God. The Ten Commandments are the very first set of rules that God gave us that are objective, of how we're to live our lives. So they're not actually prohibitions as much as they are directions of how to live life, of not lying, stealing. It deals with not hurting other people, of treating other people the way you want them to treat you, and then loving God and taking time to really show God that we put Him first. So those truths are incorporated in each of these illustrated books, and we got to start at a young age, especially in the culture that we live today, because visual images are so prevalent in our culture today. It does not take long to capture a child's heart and soul. The statistics about what children are watching at a young age today, if children have a steady diet of visual images 8 and under, it literally can have a permanent effect upon their ability to comprehend and their ability to discern, and it affects their values and judgment and ability to discern. Let me explain that. When children are constantly watching images, moving images, they move on a screen every 2 to 4 seconds. As those images are moving, children are being trained to think in illogical, disconnected 2 to 4 second thought patterns. It's probably one of the main foundational reasons for ADD, ADHD today. But when children are being surrounded by images, particularly images, heroic images like Superman, Batman, Iron Man, Ant-Man, the Fantastic Four, and then you go from there to Thor, and from there they always have to go farther to the left because it doesn't fulfill any longer. And then you get into things like The Walking Dead and Twilight and Harry Potter and all that stuff. And then they get into the zombies, and what happens to children is they start having those heroes being the unfulfillment of their souls. And what it does is it restricts their ability to believe in anything that is transcendent, anything that is invisible, anyone that is invisible. And literally, scientifically, this is proven right now, that it restricts their ability to exercise faith. And without faith, it's impossible to please God. Without faith, it's impossible to have a relationship with God. And so what these stories do here is that when a child's reading, that's the left side of your brain there, and that is what releases your ability to think and process and have values and discernment. But when you're watching something, it restricts that. The right side of your brain is releasing chemicals that literally sedate a person, causing them to kind of like let go of any values. In fact, what happens is the images become their heroes. Okay, the worldview of whoever produced those video games and videos and films, all of those things, whoever's producing those things, that's their worldview. And what a child is, what a child is watching, that becomes their new imagination. In fact, they lose their own imagination, and it's replaced with the imagination of Hollywood. They become their new image. And so that's why from the very beginning in Genesis it says that God created us in His image. And that's why we got to safeguard as parents. We have to be heroic today because there is such a pervasive saturation of images that children are actually being exposed to such a degree that they're taking on themselves a new image, not the image of God. So we have an opportunity right now to replace what Hollywood is giving to our children so that our children can start having new heroes, heroes of faith, so that they can live their life valiantly and excitingly for the glory of God.